My mum and dad moved, when they got married in 1933, they got married, and we had a family of four. They moved from Cummeragunja to Mooroopna and then to Shepparton, basically to give us a better life. Yeah, to give the kids a better life. It was a big move for mum and dad to do that because they had largely or mainly lived with an Indigenous community, and having left that community was pretty difficult for mum and dad. And then the other fold of that was that they weren't accepted by the white community. Our rights were violated in almost every sense. The colour of our skin really mattered then. I mean, it still does today to a degree, in a lot of cases. We used to go to the shops around the corner, taking lemonade bottles back, as I told you before. And a guy who I used to see around there quite often, he had a building business. He asked me one day, he said, "You go to school?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Do you want a job?" And I said, "Oh yeah." He said, "Would you like to be a carpenter?" I said, "Absolutely." And I took the job with this guy who was just a fantastic bloke. He was terrific to everybody. He gave people a chance. And so what mum and dad were doing for us, this guy just continued it away from home for me. I didn't have tradesmen that taught me, I had craftsmen that taught me. When I drove into town, I can still remember the first roof that I cut out, and I used to say to the kids, "That's the first roof," and they'd say, "Yeah, we know, that's the first roof," without me. Letter of deferment I got first. That was the first thing I got. That gave me a 2-year break. That was in '66. So then I got a letter saying I had to do my national service. Then I got one to say I didn't have to do it because of my Aboriginality. Then I got another one to say I had to do it. So, yeah, the family was virtually in turmoil up and down about whether, because I had a child as well at that time, and she was only 3 months old. The census had Aboriginal people weren't included in the census till '67. Even now, I heard the other day that they're working hard to change the constitution so that Indigenous people can be included. I mean, how archaic is that? Because we took the challenge to move into town and everything else with mum and dad, and they wanted us to be part of the community. I did have my ear to the ground about Vietnam and about conscripts and conscription and that sort of stuff. I thought that I was a chance to go, that my name was in the barrel. National service to me, it wasn't so tough for me, coming from a family of 14 where we had to sort of fight, bite and scratch and had a lot of discipline within our family, but it was really tough for a lot of the guys who I grew up with, like the white people. They'd never been away from home in a lot of cases, and after they got called up, 3 months after they got called up, they were in another country fighting a war that they knew nothing about. After 16 weeks of training, you got posted to a corps. Then I went to Canunga in Queensland to do a jungle training course, which was just a similar course to how things were going to be in Vietnam. My first memories of Vietnam was getting to Vietnam, to Saigon. We'd eaten on the plane on the way over, and then when we got there, we got these boxed lunches. Because we didn't eat any of it, because it was, we had enough, we'd have a bit of a pick out of it. We threw them in the bin. And the first thing was, before they hit the bottom, the locals who were in the war-ravaged zone were diving in and getting them out. And that was the first thing that I thought, wow, this is a pretty poor country, and we're right in the thick of the whole thing. So, no, I was with a group called 17 Construction. Whenever things got blown up around the place or bridges got blown up, we rebuilt the bridges. You had to be on your mettle all the time. So by day, you might have been working with them, and by night, you might have been fighting against them. We were fighting people on their home ground, which was difficult to gain. That's just like playing a home game of football. It's hard to go there and to win. So I likened it to that. There was still no holes barred in terms of the colour of your skin in the army. I mean, it just kept going along, rolling along. And they called for boxers for our company, because boxing and rugby in the army are just two key sports, and they have been since day dot. And I didn't want to fight. The sergeant asked if I want to fight, and I said no. And he said, "Well, if you don't want to fight," he said, "you're the only avo that I know in Australia doesn't like a fight." But that was just minor stuff compared to, what some people go through, had been through and go through, and still go through, in fact. I've been part of a lot of Vietnam veterans' rehabilitation, because when we came back from Vietnam, we weren't welcome back. We came back under the cover of darkness. The government didn't really want to know about us when we came back. In fact, they didn't want to know about us, and governments from that day to this day, in my opinion, have continually let the diggers down. The guys have lasting illnesses from effects from the war, lasting effects of the war, and it hasn't just affected them. I mean, it's affected their children, their family, their wives, and lots of them have committed suicide because of it, because of lack of forthcoming help. So the war finished in 1975, and in 1987, a welcome home was made for the diggers. Non-Indigenous people said to me, now I know what it feels like to be Indigenous, because you get treated like rubbish left, right and centre, get treated with scant respect. And that's exactly how it was. It was actually through my umpiring, because I used to go on the television for what they call What's Your Decision. Through that, what I did was I made an announcement. I asked Ron Casey on Channel 7, could I make an announcement to appeal to people to ring me so we can get an association going. We had 30 march in the first year, then we went to 50, then we went to 80, 130. Now we have about 400, 500 march every year who never miss the march. We have 2 or 3 people that we've never seen that have come right out of the woodwork now to come back and catch up with their mates. So, I mean, that's fantastic. Yeah, I came back and got stuck into sport, and that helped me sort of alleviate all the things that happened to me over there and what I saw. A lot of these guys didn't do that. I mean, I remember getting called back into camp, into the hospital, getting flown from being out in the bush to go to the hospital because one of the guys I did basic training with, he got shot up big time, absolute big time. His life is totally destroyed. He's still alive. 2 years of his life were taken away from him. That has affected him for the rest of his life. 2 years to someone like myself has handled it pretty well, and others who have stood up is like a cup of water in the ocean. But it's a sea of water, it's an ocean of water in his cup, unfortunately.